The Karcsi Identity. Written, directed and performed in 13 episodes by Jesse Rowe. Chapter 3. The Cabin. Karcsi sat up abruptly, rubbing his eyes to chase away the remnants of his sleep. He wasn't sure if he had just experienced a dream or a memory. He desperately hoped it was just a dream. He glanced over at his father's bed, expecting to see him there, but it was empty. The bed was made neatly, as if his father had left with a purpose. On the pillow was a note, a neatly folded piece of paper, as meticulously arranged as the bedsheets. Intrigued and anxious, Karcsi walked over and picked up the note, unfolding it with trembling fingers. The characters on the paper were foreign to him. It was written in a language and an alphabet he did not recognize. The mysterious script seemed like a code, something he would have to learn or decipher. He moved to the table and sat down, pouring himself a glass of water to steady his nerves. He selected a sharp pencil from the pencil pot on the table and began to study the note, trying to guess what the strange dashes and squiggles could mean. The symbols were incomprehensible to him, a riddle that could take weeks or even months to solve. He scribbled some thoughts in the margin, feeling the weight of uncertainty and isolation. Months passed as Karcsi remained in that chair, dedicated to the puzzle before him. He only got up briefly to catch a rabbit or a small deer for food, or to use the bathroom. His hair grew long, and it curled at the ends, a testament of the time he had spent in solitary confinement just with this note. Despite his best efforts, the code continued to baffle him. It seemed impenetrable, an enigma that perhaps he would never understand. One night, by the light of a homemade candle, Karcsi sat watching the flickering flame. He took a sip of water and noticed the candle flicker quickly to the left before going out. The window flew open, pushed by a sudden breeze. He stood up, slowly, and walked over to close it. Now 10 years old, Karcsi was strong and muscular, his body hardened by the demands of living alone in the woods. He moved with purpose. His mind was clear and honest. As he shut the window, he noticed torches in the forest surrounding the cabin. He moved to the other windows and saw the same sight. Torches in the distance, encircling the cabin. Karcsi quickly counted the torches, his mind working swiftly. There were 95 torches, an impressive number of people closing in on him. Above him he heard a sound growing louder and louder, a buzzing noise like a large, angry bee. He stepped back and crouched down, peering out the window at the sky above the cabin. A bright light illuminated the area, revealing a dark, flying object. It looked like a wasp, an alien creature from his father's bedtime stories and his own troubling nightmares. Inside the flying machine, he could see a figure in the front, a woman, tall and grim, with a determined expression. She resembled the woman from his dream months ago. Unease settled over him as he moved back to his chair and sat down. There was nothing now he could do but wait. The buzzing sound grew louder, and then stopped suddenly. But Karcsi remained still, eyes closed, waiting for the inevitable knock on his door. When the knock came, Karcsi didn't move. He sensed he was being watched. The first knock was followed by a gentle second, and then a more aggressive third. He heard a short whistle and then a loud bang on the door that was forced open. The splintering wood did not make him flinch. Silence descended, broken only by the footsteps of men entering the cabin. He could hear them moving through the darkness, their presence palpable. Then she appeared at the door, Dr. Marsh. Some of them moved upstairs to the mezzanine floor, the squeaking of the nails signalling their ascent. Karcsi remained seated, surrounded by the men aiming their guns at him. With a flick of her finger, Dr. Marsh signaled her men to open fire. Karcsi reacted instinctively, grabbing a wooden mug from the table and striking the nearest soldier on the side of his neck. He performed a cartwheel, kicking another soldier in the stomach. The muzzle flashes from the machine guns created a strobe light, allowing Karcsi to see his next target and Dr. Marsh to witness his strength and agility. The confrontation lasted 49 seconds. In that brief time, Karcsi dispatched all the soldiers, leaving them lying on the floor, both on the ground level and on the mezzanine. He removed a night vision goggle from the soldier at his feet and stood in the doorway, staring directly at Dr. Marsh. A sense of fear and accomplishment washed over him. He had surprised himself with his prowess, but now he felt vulnerable. Dr. Marsh pulled out a small device, similar in size to the pencil Karcsi had been using to decipher the code. It had a small red button on the end. She pressed it, and Karcsi watched as the button depressed. He felt a sudden, overwhelming force, and then darkness enveloped him. He remembered no more of the events of that very night. Karcsi awoke with a start, unsure of how much time had passed. His body ached and his surroundings were unfamiliar. He was in a small, dimly lit room, restrained to a cold metal chair. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic and fear. His mind was a blur, trying to piece together the fragments of what had happened. He remembered the torches, the buzzing sound, and the confrontation with Dr. Marsh. He looked around the room, noting the stark, clinical decor. A single door was the only exit, and a large mirrored wall suggested he was being observed. He felt a chill run down his spine. A sense of being watched intensified his anxiety. He tugged at his restraints, testing their strength. They were secure, not giving any inch. The door opened. Dr. Marsh walked in, her demeanor cold and calculating. She observed Karcsi with a clinical detachment, as if he were a specimen under a microscope. Her presence filled the room with a sense of dread. She approached him, her eyes never leaving his face. Dr. Marsh circled the chair, her gaze unwavering. She seemed to be assessing him, weighing his worth. Karcsi met her gaze with defiance, refusing to show any ounce of fear. She stopped in front of him, her expression inscrutable. Without a word, Dr. Marsh reached into her pocket and pulled out the small device she had used earlier. She held it up for Karcsi to see, her finger hovering over the button. Karchi's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know what the device did, but he knew it was powerful. Dr. Marsh pressed the button, and a sharp pain shot through Karchi's body. He gasped, his muscles contracting involuntarily. The pain was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if his whole entire nervous system was on fire. He clenched his teeth, trying to suppress a scream. The pain subsided as quickly as it had come. Karcsi was left panting, his body trembling. Dr. Marsh watched him with a detached interest, as if observing the effects of a mere experiment. She placed the device back in her pocket and turned to leave the room. Before she exited, she spoke, for the first time, her voice calm and measured. "You have potential, Karcsi, but potential is nothing without control." With that, she left the room, the door closing behind her with a heavy thud. Karcsi was left alone, the echo of her words ringing in his ears. He had no idea what she meant or what she had planned for him, but he knew one thing. He had to escape. Days turned into weeks as Karcsi remained confined in that small room. He was given minimal food and water, just enough to keep him alive. The restraints were never removed, and he was left alone with his thoughts. His mind raced, trying to devise a plan of escape.